This is a narration based on real-life events. For safety and privacy reasons, all names have been removed, and certain details have been changed to protect the identity of the person involved. This was done out of deep respect for their personal privacy and well-being. A young woman left everything she had ever known, her family, her home, her safety, for a faith that could get her killed. She was beaten, imprisoned, forced into marriage, and left for dead in a desert. And through all of it, she never stopped whispering one name. If you think faith costs nothing, stay and read this. Your heart will never be the same. Please comment below where you are watching from so we can connect, pray for one another, and build a family of faith across nations. You can also share your thoughts, your personal experiences with God, or a short prayer for others in the comment section. Let it be a place of love, encouragement, and unity. I am 20 years old as I write this, sitting in a small room in Amman, Jordan, finally safe. But my heart still lives in Yemen. The smell of cardamom coffee brewing in my mother's kitchen. The sound of the call to prayer echoing across the rooftops of our little town. The giggle of my younger sister as she chased cats through our courtyard. I want you to feel what I felt, because maybe then you will understand why I gave up everything. It began in 2021, when I was 16 years old. Our house was simple. Some baked bricks, a small courtyard where my mother grew mint and jasmine. Every morning the Adhan woke us, and I would kneel beside her on our worn prayer rugs, the soft fabric cool beneath my knees. My father was respected in our community, always at the mosque, always helping. He was strict, but his eyes would soften when he brought me dates from the market. He would tell me I would make the family proud. I wanted so badly to believe that was still possible after everything that came next. I wore the niqab like every girl in our town. It covered everything but my eyes, and sometimes I felt like it hid me from myself. One afternoon, a close friend pulled me aside in the schoolyard and whispered something that planted a seed inside me I could not uproot. She asked me, her voice barely audible, whether I had ever wondered if there was more to God than what we had been taught. In Yemen, that question alone could destroy a person. Apostasy, leaving Islam, was not just a sin. It could mean death. But the seed had been planted. My friend was brave in ways I was not. She slipped me a folded piece of paper one day under the shade of a date palm, telling me to read it in private. That night, alone in my room, I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a Bible verse written in Arabic. It spoke of rest for weary souls, an invitation from someone called Jesus. I did not know him, but those words reached into a part of me that had never been touched before, warm and gentle, like a hand extended in the dark. I hid the paper under my mattress and lay awake for hours. Over the following months, my friend shared more. She showed me a Bible app and links to websites about Christianity. I read them hidden under my blanket, my thumb trembling as I scrolled, terrified someone would walk in. I learned about a God who did not just demand obedience but offered friendship, a Savior who touched the untouchable and forgave the unforgivable. It was so different from everything I had grown up believing. Then she invited me to a secret meeting. I told my mother I was going to study with a friend, my voice barely holding steady. The meeting was held in an attic above a spice shop, reached through narrow alleys. Inside, a small group of people sat on cushions in the dim lamplight, an older man, a young woman with a sleeping baby, a boy around my age. They welcomed me with smiles that were warm but cautious. The older man read from a hidden Bible, his voice low as breath. He spoke about Jesus calming a storm, and I felt something shift inside me, like the ground becoming solid after years of sinking sand. They sang a hymn so quietly it was almost silence. I did not know the words, but tears ran down my face without warning. When I got home, I knelt by my bed, not on a prayer rug, and spoke to Jesus for the first time. I told him that if he was real, I needed him to show me. I needed him to keep me safe. What I felt in that moment was not thunder or lightning. It was simply peace. Quiet, steady, unexplainable peace. I kept going to those secret meetings. I kept reading. And I kept playing two roles, the obedient Muslim daughter by day and the hidden believer by night. I thought I could keep those two lives separate forever. I was wrong. It happened on an ordinary afternoon in 2022. My younger sister walked into my room unexpectedly while I had the Bible app open on my phone. She was 14, loyal, and frightened by what she saw. She asked me what it was, her voice sharp with shock. I begged her to stay quiet, tears already falling. But that night I heard her sobbing to my mother in the kitchen, telling her I was reading things I should not read, that I was no longer one of them. My father stormed into my room. He grabbed my phone and smashed it on the floor. He called me an infidel. He struck me across the face so hard I fell. My mother stood in the doorway, clutching her prayer beads, tears streaming down her face, asking me why. They locked me in my room. I sat on my bed hugging my knees, whispering to Jesus in the dark. I heard my family arguing downstairs. My sister did not come near me. The next morning my father told me to recant, to say I was Muslim and all would be forgiven. I loved him. I loved my mother. I loved my sister with everything inside me. But when I opened my mouth, the only words that came out were that I believed in Jesus. His face broke. Then he pointed at me and said I was no longer his daughter. That evening, trucks came. I heard the tires on our street, then boots on our doorstep. Armed militiamen burst into our home, their rifles catching the last light of the sunset. They asked where the apostate was. My father said nothing to stop them. My mother screamed but was pushed aside. They tied my hands with rough rope that bit into my skin, blindfolded me, and dragged me outside. I heard my sister cry my name, but no one came. They threw me into a truck. The engine roared, and my home disappeared into the dark behind me. They took me to a compound somewhere in Yemen. High walls, barbed wire, armed men everywhere. A man introduced himself as the one in charge. He was calm, which was somehow worse than shouting. He told me I had shamed my faith and my people, and that I would answer for it. They put me in a cell with a dirt floor, one high window, and marks scratched into the wall by others who had been there before me. They gave me stale bread and a cup of water each day. The beating started almost immediately. When I refused to recant, guards would enter and strike me with fists and sticks. They dragged me by my hair across the floor. They did things to me I cannot write in full, things that left me curled up in the corner feeling hollowed out, like they were trying to scrape away every piece of who I was. But they could not touch the part that belonged to Jesus. That part one kept like a flame cupped in both hands against the wind. The commander came regularly, sitting across from me with a rifle leaning against the wall. He told me I was young and could still save myself. He told me one refusal after another would cost me everything. Each time I told him I could not deny Jesus, something in his face hardened further. Then he told me I would marry him, that it would cleanse what I had done. There was no wedding. There was a room with a few men holding rifles and an imam reading words that meant nothing to me. The commander stood beside me, his hand heavy on my arm, and I thought of my mother dreaming of my real wedding day. Henna, music, flowers. This was a cage wearing a white robe. What happened afterward I will not describe in detail. I will only say that each night I whispered to Jesus, asking him to stay, and somehow, in a way I cannot explain with words, he did. In the cell beside mine was another woman, a Christian convert, older than me by about 12 years. We found a crack in the shared wall and whispered to each other at night when the guards were gone. She had lost her children. Her husband had divorced her. The militia had taken her home. And yet her voice was not broken. She told me Jesus was worth all of it. She taught me a hymn we would sing together so softly the guards could not hear. She became my sister in that darkness, the only warmth in a place built from cold and fear. We planned our escape together, watching the guards, learning their patterns. A younger guard among them seemed different. His eyes were not as hard as the others. Over time I spoke to him kindly. Small things. Thank you for the water. Is it warm outside? One day he muttered under his breath that what was happening was not right. I prayed quietly. Show us a way out through him, Jesus. The night came during an A-strike. Government forces hit nearby targets, and the compound shook with explosions, dust raining from the ceiling. In the confusion, that young guard slipped a key through the bars of my cell and told me the gate was open. My hands trembled so badly I could barely use it. I ran to my companion's cell and freed her. Together we crept through the dark, past crates and rifles, into the desert night. We ran. My feet were bare, the sand sharp and cold. Her robe was torn. We hid behind rocks when headlights swept the desert, and we heard the commander's voice shouting orders to find us. We kept moving. She began to slow. I saw blood on her side, dark in the moonlight. She told me she was fine, but she was not. I put her arm around my shoulder and half carried her as she had once carried me with her words. At dawn we reached the village. An old woman opened her door, looked at us, and pulled us inside without a word. She hid us behind sacks of rice and brought water and cloth for the wound. But my companion was growing cold. I cleaned the gash in her side as best I could, talking to her, praying over her. She hummed our hymn with the last of her breath and told me to go on without her, to live for Jesus. She was gone before the sun was fully up. I kissed her forehead, whispered that I would see her again in heaven, and ran. A smuggler found me 2 miles north, just as the old woman had said. He drove me through back roads and mountain passes, hiding me under blankets at checkpoints. The journey took days. We crossed into Jordan at the border, a line in the sand that felt like the edge of a different world. When I stumbled across it, my legs gave out and I fell to my knees in the dirt and wept. I was free, but I had lost nearly everything to get there. In Amman, a church found me. A pastor with kind eyes told me I was home. I did not believe him at first, but I kept coming back. Women taught me to sew. Children drew pictures that made me smile for the first time in months. Slowly, painfully, I began to heal. I wrote a letter to my younger sister that I could not send, telling her I forgave her. Forgiving my father was harder. Forgiving my mother harder still. But I prayed for them every night without stopping, and something in me grew lighter each time. One Sunday the church asked me to speak. I stood before them with shaking hands and told them everything. When I finished, people were weeping and praying and holding each other. The pastor told me I was a light. I did not feel like one, but I felt Jesus, close, steady, real. I carry Yemen in my heart. I carry my companions in. I carry every scar. But I am still here, and Jesus is still with me. That is enough to keep going. To every Christian reading this, please pray today for believers in Yemen, in Iran, in North Korea, and across every nation where faith in Jesus costs everything. Pray for those in prison right now for his name. Pray for families torn apart by the same choice described in this story. And if you want to come home to Jesus today, say this simply: Lord Jesus, I believe you died for me and rose again. Forgive my sins. I give you my life. I am yours. He is already running toward you. Please share this story, like it, leave a comment with where you are watching from, and subscribe. Someone you love may need to see this next week.